Hi, my name is John, and this video is another two tag videos in one. I was tagged for both of these by Kari from Very Literary Kari. The first video is the self-aware reader tag. This tag was created by Courtney Ferriter. Now, Kari tagged me for this back at the end of December, and I'm just now getting to it, so I do apologize to Kari for it taking me this long to get this video done, but she's been very kind and understanding, and I appreciate that. Prompt 1. What most draws you into a novel or story and makes you want to keep reading? Plot, characters, writing style, atmosphere, something else? I do enjoy a story with a good plot. I can read stories if the characters are compelling enough, but I really do prefer a good, strong plot story. Prompt number 2. What is a convention or trope that will immediately turn you off in your reading experience with a novel or story? I talked about this in my April wrap-up video when I talked about Off to Be the Wizard, but I really don't like it when a character does something stupid and then that is supposed to pass as comedy. That really annoys me and it turns me off. I actually can't watch a lot of sitcoms because of that. Question 3. What most appeals to you when reading nonfiction and makes you want to keep reading? Obviously, I'm reading nonfiction to learn. However, if the author can somehow turn the nonfiction into a story and tell it as a story, I do find that much more interesting. Prompt 4. What is a convention or trope in nonfiction that will turn you off in your reading experience? Can't really think of one to mention here. I do prefer nonfiction to be in chronological order when necessary. I have read some that are kind of topical, and that can work if it's done well. Prompt number 5. Would you say you read more for pleasure and enjoyment or more to learn and exercise your brain? I do read more fiction than I do nonfiction. I do read fiction primarily for enjoyment. However, I do believe that you can learn from fiction as well. And I always try to keep my eye out for lessons when I'm reading fiction. Prompt 6. Which type of books are you likely to rate more highly and enjoy more overall? Brain candy, pleasure enjoyment books, or brain protein, learning exercise books. I think I do tend to give more 5 stars to nonfiction than I do fiction. With fiction, I am actually judging to see how much I enjoyed reading it. With nonfiction, I'm really judging to see how much I learned by reading it. As long as it's well written and informative, I'm much more likely to give it 5 stars. Prompt 7. Do you have a sense early on whether or not the book you're reading will be a 5-star read or a book you will really like? Has a book ever surprised you in this regard? I think early on I can get a fairly good sense of where the book is going to land. I've certainly had books that have improved as I've read them. For example, The Black Company went from a 3-star to a 4-star as I got deeper into the novel. I really thought that Fire Sale was going to be a 5-star read for me. Unfortunately, I was able to predict the end of that one, and that's what knocked it down to a 4-star. Prompt 8. Considering books that you've rated 5 stars in the past, or if you don't rate them, then books you really loved, do you think you would feel the same way about them now? Why or why not? There are definitely books that I read when I was younger that I don't feel as strongly about now. And so I would assume that books that, I've kind of rated recently, I'm sure on a reread I may change my rating, but I don't think I'd change it more than a single star. The next tag is the last 10 books tag. This tag was created by Mark Nash. Question 1. The last book you didn't finish. The last book I didn't finish was Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. This is the first book in the Wheel of Time series. I read it at a time where really I had too much going on, and I got about halfway through the book, and I really did not want to kind of struggle through the last half of the book. If I were to rate the first half of the book, I'd give it 3 stars. I just didn't feel like pushing through for what was, a okay read for me. Question 2. The last book you reread. This is Unicorn Point by Piers Anthony. This is the 6th book in the Apprentice to Depth series. I read this series back in my late teens or early 20s, and I haven't really read it since then. So it's been at least 25 years since I've read the series. Question 3. The last book you bought. I bought a series of 5 books from Thrift Books. 3 of them are of Isaac Asimov's Empire series. This completes the books that I need for my Isaac Asimov read-through. Next is Bring the Jubilee by Ward Moore. This is his best-known work. I read his novel Greener Than You Think back in April. Last is Escape from Hell by Larry Niven and Jerry Purnell. This is the sequel to Inferno that I also read in April. This book was actually written much later. Inferno was written in the 70s. This was written in 2010. Question 4. The last book you said you read, but didn't. When I was in 11th grade in high school, I had a project where I was to write a biography of a famous person. And we had a rather ridiculous requirement for the number of books that we had to read in order to write the report. I think it was 20. I think of the 20 books that I listed, I only read about 10 of them. Now, I did check all of the books out of the library, so I did have a copy of them in my possession at some point, but I didn't read all of them. Question 5. The last book you wrote in the margins of. Now, I don't normally write in books, but one day while I was at church, our pastor was going through the book of John, and he specifically told us to write in our Bible. So in the Gospel of John, chapter 6, verse 35, I have written that this is the first I am statement. Funny story about this Bible. For several years, the church that I went to gave out a copy of this Bible to everyone that graduated from high school. So when I would come home from college, and I was in my Sunday school class for college and career, whenever the teacher would call out the book, chapter, and verse, whoever found it first would call out the page number, and well over half of the class had the same version of the Bible, and so they knew what page to turn to. Question 6. The last book you had signed. Now, I'm not really much for getting books signed. Quite frankly, the time spent standing in line to get a book signed is time that I could be reading the book. However, way back in 2005, I attended a conference where Moses Caesar was the main speaker. This is his book, The Tree in the Middle of My Garden. And you can see that he signed it and left me a nice note inside. And he dated it as well. That's how I know it was 2005. Question 7, the last book you lost. Question 8, the last book you had to replace. When I started my Xanth read-through around 4 to 5 years ago, I noticed that I was missing my copies of Ogre and Nightmare. This is the 5th and 6th book in the series. So I had to go and buy new copies of them. I think I loaned these out, but I don't remember to who. Question 10, the last book you couldn't get a hold of. I am still looking for a copy of Induction Machines by Philip Alger. These are a couple of older tags, so I'm not going to tag anyone for either one of these. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.